Thank you for taking the time tonight, and everyone for joining from all different kinds of time zones. It's great to be talking with you. As was said, I am currently a legislative affairs officer at the United States Institute of Peace, handling China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan policy. As the title kind of demonstrates, I'm going to start a little bit with my background a bit, and then we'll get into some advice for you guys, because we want to give you some great concrete takeaways to get your career started in the U.S.-Japan space. So starting a little bit about me, my career kind of started, and my life started really about as far away as you can get from Japan as possible, in the middle of Des Moines, Iowa. Wasn't even really interested in Japan growing up at all. It wasn't actually until going to college, which originally did to work in state politics, federal politics, volunteering on political campaigns, that I took a Japanese history class on a whim and became utterly fascinated with Japanese culture, history, language, began taking more classes. And that eventually led me to go all the way to Osaka in my junior year as a study abroad student, where I studied at Kwansei Gakuin University in Nishinomiya, Japan. Had an incredible time there, lived with the Japanese host family, and still keep in touch with the friends I made there today. But that incredible experience impacted me so much that by the time I got back to Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, all I could think about was, when is my next Japan opportunity going to be? And I didn't have to wait long, because during my senior year, I was able to participate in a conference with the Tomodachi Initiative over in Chicago, Illinois, where we connected American and Japanese students with professionals in the private sector, public sector, talking about careers in the U.S.-Japan space. And it was here where I really started to realize my interest in Japanese culture, history, language. It's not just an interest. This can be a professional pursuit. I can pair this with what I've been learning in college and actually pursue this after graduation. And in fact, that's exactly what I did. So after going back from Osaka to Des Moines, Iowa, 5 days after graduating, I moved out to Washington, D.C. to pursue a career starting on Capitol Hill, where I became first a staff assistant in a Senate office for Senator Jeff Flake. And as a staff assistant, you're manning the front office. You are taking phone calls, most of them angry, day in, day out for about 8 hours at a time. You're managing the team of interns. You're handling visitors. You're giving building tours. But, through the grind of that day to day, and it is a grind for the first couple of years, I never lost my strong interest and desire to get involved in the U.S.-Japan space. And I know that many of you are probably feel the same way about working hard to get in that space. I spent most of my lunch breaks every day, hour at a time, pulling through different kanji and vocab flashcards, just looking to get better and get that next JLPT level pass. And eventually I got my chance when I got to go to the House side to become a legislative assistant or policy advisor for a member of Congress handling Asia policy. And the most recent one was Congressman Young Kim in the middle photo up top, who is now the chair of the Indo-Pacific Committee on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And under her, I was able to write legislation, not primarily on Japan, but on Japan-related subjects. And one thing I found is that while Japan careers on the Hill really don't exist, there are so many issues, as other panelists have highlighted, that touch Japan in some way that is incredibly significant and meaningful. So I was able to write legislation on many topics relevant to Japan, such as human rights situation in China and North Korea, strengthening deterrence for Taiwan, and so many other initiatives along the way. Even able to travel abroad to places like South Korea and Bahrain and go to diplomatic receptions all around DC. But all the while having these great experiences, while continuing to build my Japan fluency, I will note that a very valuable part of my experience was gaining very intimate knowledge of the policymaking process in Washington, such as who the players are, how things get done, the balance of power between the legislative and executive branches of government. These are very tangible, valuable things to employers that hire out there. But at the same time, I still had my strong desire to get involved in Japan policy. And when you're on the Hill, you have to be a mile wide and an inch deep, meaning you're stretched very thin, you have very little bandwidth, and it's very hard to become an expert in much of anything specific. And so I had the opportunity, I applied and was accepted to the Mansfield Fellowship Program, which takes a group of 10 U.S. federal employees every year from the U.S. to Tokyo to work inside the Japanese government in a variety of placements for an entire year. And this was the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to do a program like this, working for months at a time in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Defense, the National Diet, their version of Congress, and getting tons of incredible opportunities along the way, such as observing live fire self-defense force exercises at the base of Mount Fuji, giving presentations to senior MOFA officials, serving as an assistant visiting professor at Kumamoto University, and even leapfrogging between different U.S. and Japanese military bases in Tokyo, Kyushu, and Okinawa. It really was a great opportunity to dive back into learning about Japan, becoming more of a Japan expert along the way in ways that Capitol Hill didn't allow me to do. So in some ways, it allowed me to build different capabilities that were complementary to what I had learned on the Hill. But all good things have to come to an end. And at the end of that year, I moved back and was very fortunate to join up with the U.S. Institute of Peace, which is an independent institute established and funded by Congress to prevent, mitigate, and resolve violent conflicts globally as part of the U.S. national security strategy. And as I mentioned there, I'm a legislative affairs officer handling China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan policy. So that means I work daily with our regional experts at USIP in DC and our field staff on the ground around the world in over 90 countries abroad, including in the Indo-Pacific region, and communicating that information that we gather on the ground, the intelligence that we gather as a result, with policymakers on the Hill to help inform their action on Capitol Hill, while at the same time communicating what's going on Capitol Hill to all the people at USIP. So being a real bridge between the two institutions. At the same time, my continued involvement with organizations like Tomodachi Initiative has given me great opportunities to continue involvement with Japan, such as getting to sit down with Prime Minister Kishida when he visited the U.S. recently and discuss strengthening educational exchange opportunities. So enough about me. Let's talk about you guys. Some quick pieces of advice for you guys that you can take away from today. Looking forward to your questions. The first, a bit of a hot take, but I would say in my own personal experience that fluency complements and is a big advantage in your career. But with some exceptions, it does not guarantee a career alone. Try your best to build complementary skills in your career, practical skills that you can market to employers. That being said, I do want to emphasize that Japanese fluency is a huge plus in the U.S.-Japan space. It can open many doors. It helps break down language barriers, helps build more trusting relationships with your Japanese counterparts. Cannot emphasize enough how important building different fluency capacity is, but focus on other practical skills as well to build a more well-rounded candidacy for different job opportunities. Second, know how to market your utility. It's not just about what you know. Employers care about what you can do with what you know. So make sure that you are marketing yourself as someone who can help make money or accomplish the objective that your employer is trying to set out for you. Third, pursue immersion opportunities. If feasible, I know money is tight and a lot of you out there are students right now with not a lot to go around, but try to pursue opportunities to go live, study, work in Japan. It really is impossible to get to know Japan on a granular level without spending time actually living there on the ground. And I cannot emphasize enough how helpful that was in my career, and I'm sure in the career of many others who are on this call and who are on this panel. And when you work there, try to work in Japanese as well. It would just help your language skills even more. Fourth, mentor and be mentored. You should always have one hand reaching up and one hand reaching down. By that, I mean establishing meaningful mentorship relationships where these professionals are helping you out in your career, they're advocating for you, you're learning from them, but you also have a hand down helping out the next generation, which means you get to help ensure that the U.S.-Japan space is filled with bright, capable, passionate individuals so we continue to make this space stronger and stronger over time. And then finally, I know I've been talking for a long time very quickly, so I'll wrap up here. I can't emphasize this enough. So if you take nothing else away from what I've said, take this: network, network, network. It is almost always about who you know. When you're trying to open job opportunities, how you find out these job opportunities, how you open the door, how you get into that next interview stage, who you know is so vitally important, including in guiding your career path. I have to say, especially in the context of the U.S.-Japan relationship, networking and building trusting relationships have been crucial to unlocking opportunities, making progress, and securing advancement. So with that, I know I've been talking for a while. I am really excited to hear all your questions, and thank you for letting me join tonight.